edition of Hold My Cutter. We're coming your way, as always, here at Burn by Rocky Patel. We're just a couple blocks away from the ballpark, PNC Park. Greg Brown and Michael McHenry. And our special guest, as always, as you know, if you've been listening or watching, you know that each special guest on Hold My Cutter always asks for his or her special cigar. And in this case, our guest has asked for the Rocky Patel Gold Label. Just came out here about a month ago here at Burn by Rocky Patel on the North Shore. Embark on a journey of flavor as the richness of old-age tobaccos unfolds with every draw.
Ooh.
Gold Label delivers a sophisticated taste experience with earthy nuances, luscious caramel undertones, and the bold flavor of coffee. A lingering sweetness rounds out each puff. Give it a shot. Yep, that's true. Leaving a lasting impression of indulgence. And it makes sense that this guy would ask for the Gold Label because next year he'll actually be voting, more than likely, on the Gold Glove Awards in Major League Baseball. He's the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette beat writer for the Pittsburgh Pirates, one of two or three actually now. Noah Hiles joins us. Noah.
Brownie, this is the Triolo.
This is the Triolo.
It's a utility
Does
gold
a little
glove.
bit of everything.
Now,
right?
Noah, as you're aware, this is the master of nicknames, the Fort, Michael McHenry.
That's what this is.
This is the Triolo.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one that brought it. He was like, I have a little bit of Swiss Army knife in me in my writing.
What a great
just
start.
like Triolo does on the field. So he brought this Swiss Army knife.
He's also the
cigar.
master of the segue because that leads us to Jerry Triolo, who
right out of the gate.
a Gold Glove nominee for the second year that Rawlings is now dishing out a utility Gold Glove.
About
right?
time, by the way.
Huh?
About time. I love it.
About time. Yeah.
And I think that I wouldn't be surprised moving forward if when you see more and more guys just kind of being so versatile defenders moving around that we might just not have position Gold Gloves. It might just be the 9 top fielders. I know a lot of people probably wouldn't like that, but I think that that's kind of where the game's trending. No, that maybe 30, 40 years from now, it's just
I hope
your
not.
9 best, or maybe you just have corner
because
outfield.
if we have time, we're going to get into it because you're one of these young guys. You're too young to even be.
It's going to get interesting.
You're too young to even be having a cup of coffee, but you are. And how is the coffee, by the way?
It's
here?
fantastic.
Yeah, thought so. But
he's got a straw, Brownie.
Yeah.
He's got a straw. That tells his age.
That's iced coffee.
That's iced coffee.
Yes, exactly.
We'll get into that about where the game is trending, and we won't be I won't be the old man. Get off my lawn. McHenry might be. Actually,
maybe.
You're middle-aged, maybe. Old man.
I'm right in the middle.
Middle-aged man. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you just got out of high school last week, right?
Not with that mustache, that golden mustache.
11 years ago.
11
wow.
years ago, yeah.
What high school?
Burgettstown area high school.
And did you grow up a Bucko fan?
I did, yes. I went to every opening day since 2005.
Whoa.
Wow.
I've continued that streak
So
now with my
since
job.
you were 6,
Nice.
4?
Oh, no, so that would have been when I was 10 years old.
Oh, okay. Close.
My dad pulled me out of school by surprise. And
What a good dad.
And he had a brand new Pirates hat and my glove sitting in the front seat of his car. And I still have that hat in my office.
Where'd the
now.
glove go?
The glove, I don't know, grew out.
All right, now,
but a lot of more baseball gloves.
Well,
but
let's go back to that now. Let's take that back. What precipitated that? Why all of a sudden would he surprise you for opening day? Do you know?
We'd just never done it before. I got really into sports when I was around 8 years old. That's when I kind of became obsessed with it. Both my parents were always big readers, so they encouraged me to be a better reader, and part of that involved them getting me a subscription to Sports Illustrated and Sports Illustrated for Kids.
Wow.
And so I would just read a whole bunch about it, and then I think we had 3 different local papers delivered to us growing up, and I would always, my dad would encourage me, like, hey, read this while you're waiting for the bus. Just read about your teams. And so I got really into sports then, and the year prior, when I was 9, we started going to games. We'd always gone to games as a family, but my dad and I started going to a lot of games together that summer prior. And he had never been to an opening day. I had never been to an opening day.
Oh, man.
So that's when the tradition started, and it carried through high school. He had to schedule work meetings around this. I, at one point in time in college, took an exam a week and a half early so I could make it to one of the opening days when I was in college. Never missed it. The only one that we weren't together, we weren't together for, 2020, obviously. No opening day for fans. And then 2021, I was actually in the hospital during it. But we got to watch opening day in the hospital together, and that was kind of cool. So had a lot of great memories, even after, graduated from fandom and went into media and started covering it, still being able to go down there before first pitch, take our picture together and text our family, hey, however many years in a row this is, I think we'd be going on, what, 2025, starting 2005, it'd be 20 years.
That's incredible.
Starting
Why were
next
you in the
year.
hospital?
I was in the hospital actually with COVID.
Oh.
I had a blood clot in my lung.
Oh, no.
Yes.
But everything's good now.
Everything's good now. But yeah, I was in for 7 days. It was pretty crazy.
I hate to hear that. And when you talk about Sports Illustrated, you guys are going to kick out this. So my uncle lived with us for a while. When I was growing up. He had a Sports Illustrated subscription. I got excited because the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition always came in once a year. So just like Billy Madison, it's time to go check it out.
Oh, yeah.
It's October. I'm going out.
Yeah.
That was always a special time when you do
so
that,
he's
that
reading.
edition was
I'm
coming.
looking at the pictures.
Well, my
like,
dad would always wonder, it's like,
such a
well, how
little
come
boy.
that one was never on like the dining room table? Like all the other ones I get from the mailbox when I
That's
get
why
home from
you
school.
beat 'em to the
It's like,
mailbox.
why are you, why are you, where do these ones go?
Yeah.
And I was like,
my
I don't
mom and
know.
dad had no clue
Yeah.
that was even ordered because I'd grab those magazines, I'd keep them. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I had a plethora of Sports Illustrated swimsuits, and I think I was 8 to 10. I was like, I don't know, whatever. We'll just roll with it.
Oh, very popular.
Yeah.
Very popular.
So that's why he really did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so he surprised you, takes you out of school. You do it every year with him,
Yes.
including in the hospital.
Yes.
You're watching it. And that has continued up until even last year.
Yeah, even last year. So now.
No, he doesn't sit with you in the press
No,
box.
he does
of
not
course.
sit with me in the press box. He has a step grandson now. He just recently got remarried. So now he's kind of taken Caleb under his wing, and he's taking him to the games now. But I'm still able to stop down and say hello, and I sit with them for 10, 15 minutes before first pitch. And it's just a cool thing that we can continue to do. And, that's, I think, why baseball is just different than other sports, where you can have those types of traditions that maybe you don't necessarily have in football or basketball or hockey between, family members or loved ones or friends.
So baseball was your favorite sport?
Absolutely. Growing up.
Favorite players?
Favorite players growing up, aside from Pirates, Jason Bay, Jack Wilson, that was the era I grew up in. Jason Kendall was a favorite of mine. It's funny, my dad just sold his house, or is about to sell his house. So I was out there in this basement cleaning old things out, and I had, when I was in middle school, I had an Andrew McCutcheon poster where you can measure yourself to see how tall you are. My dad's like, you should ask him to sign that now. I was like, I don't
Do you
think
still have it?
Yeah, I found it in the basement. I was like, it was rolled up, but I had that on my wall when I was a kid. Outside the Pirates organization, I was always a huge Derek Jeter fan. Just because
Easy guy to like.
Easy guy to like. When I really fell in love with baseball was 03, 04. And I think that those two postseasons are probably the most iconic of my lifetime. I look at the 03, the championship series. You had the Bartman game on the NL side. You had Aaron Boone on the other side. And the next year, obviously, Yankees come back, and just stuff like that on top of getting to come to the beautiful ballpark that was brand new at this time for me. How do you not fall in love with the game? So yeah, those
Have you met some of these guys that were your kind of heroes, your idols growing up? And have they disappointed?
No, I haven't met a ton of them. Obviously, I've talked to Andrew because I cover him now and everything, and it's really cool to a guy who I remember on the way home from school, his MLB debut was a half day, and I asked my bus driver, "Can you put KDKA on? This guy's making his debut. I have to listen to it." Your voice is on.
The bus driver?
Yeah, the school
so
bus
the school
driver.
had to hear it?
Yeah, the whole bus 23.
The bus, yeah.
Bold move, Cotton.
Yes,
I love it.
and I heard his base hit against the Mets, and he stole second base.
Was the whole bus cheering when it happened?
I was. I don't know about the rest of the bus, but
next time, tell the story.
You go from a guy like that.
Yeah, you gotta tell the story like everybody went
bus driver had to
bonkers.
pull over, the place went crazy. Yeah.
Bus started shaking.
Yeah.
And he was a guy, for a lot of people, younger or the late end of millennials, guys in their 20s or people in their 20s, early 30s, you didn't have a player like that to watch growing up in Pittsburgh until him. And so I had that type of admiration for him. But now it's cool to just talk about music with him, talk about just random stuff. And every now and then it's cool to share with my dad. It's like the one time after the whole clubhouse cleared out last spring, we were sitting there talking about Tim Lincecum, Kutch and I, for 5 minutes. It wasn't, for a story or anything. We were just talking, and it's man, high school Noah would have geeked out over this. Tim Lincecum was a guy I loved watching pitch. Kutch was a guy I loved watching play baseball, and it's just talking about these guys that I idolized when I was, playing the game in high school and everything, and it's kind of cool to do that.
Is that a fine line where you're talking to like McCutcheon? Just a great example here. So how does he know that almost any casual conversation is off the record?
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's more just like for that
Because you
one.
say off the record, right?
Yeah, or
No. But in this case, you wouldn't have said off.
I'm just
it
kidding.
was just
You
more.
walked up to him, you started talking about Lincecum, and now you back and forth, and maybe he says something that you go,
Right.
wow,
Well,
light bulb goes off.
You just obviously, you keep the details of those things to yourself. Or if he says something very interesting, you could say, I mean,
You're careful, I write that, yeah.
Yeah, hey, like that's actually a decent story idea. Do you mind if we, if I work this into a story or whatever?
Yeah, because it's a fine line for you. Is
Right.
if you take something and you don't maybe portray what you're trying to do with it, there may be some issues.
Yeah, but my whole mentality was, with my first year covering this team for the Post-Gazette, I covered it for the Fan a little bit when I was younger, but as a beat writer, it was, I want to tell good stories, I want to report good information, but part of that is building relationships with these guys. So I don't want to only talk to them when it's transactional. If I'm only at their locker in the clubhouse asking them questions
of course.
about certain things that's going to be in a story,
Sure.
that
It's going to get very cold.
it's just going to get colder. It's just going to be, I'm viewed as a guy who, he's just here to answer questions. Where if it's like,
agenda guy.
yeah, exactly. Where this just kind of came up organically. And I was like, I wanted to ask you about this. And like, this isn't for a story. I was just curious, want to pick your brain. And I've done that with a whole bunch of guys on the team. And it's just, I like talking baseball. And these guys have played a lot of baseball, and they played against amazing players, and they played with amazing players, and it's just it's fun to pick the brains of some of these guys. So
is this something you wanted to get into at an early age?
Yes.
Writing?
You can tell his passion in it.
I mean, writing though.
My first day of 7th grade, we had this class at Burgettstown. I don't know if they still do it. It's called the Graduation Project. It starts in 7th grade and goes all the way through your last year of high school. And it's basically a class that prepares you for being an adult. Like, it teaches you interview skills. It teaches you how to make a resume, how to write a cover letter. But it starts off, the foundation of it is the first day of 7th grade, they sit you down and you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? You have to pick 3 careers. And I was convinced at that time that, Ohio State needed me to be their quarterback in 2014.
Yes.
So, and my teacher said, hey, 5'5" kid from Burgettstown, maybe that's not happening. So I thought,
Shame on you, teacher.
right,
Yeah.
let a guy dream. But I thought to myself, I love sports. Both of my parents were communicators for a living.
And what would they
My
do?
father, when I was growing up, was a pastor, and my mom was an English teacher.
Oh, wow.
And
So you had kind of both worlds.
right,
That's
so
amazing.
I every Sunday I saw my dad speak in front of hundreds of people.
Wow.
So public speaking, and then
Does
my
he still
mom.
do that?
No, he doesn't do it anymore. But and then every day, my mom was grading papers and working on that type of communication. So I was always very well spoken as a kid, and I was always really well read. So I just decided if I can't play sports for a living, I wanted to cover them. And I thought, so my 3 career suggestions were play-by-play.
Oh.
Yes, that was 1. 2 was sports talk radio host, and 3 was a writer. And I've done all 3 of those since graduating college. So.
You did some play-by-play?
I've done some play-by-play, yes.
Well, are you good?
not as good. That's funny you bring this up. The first time I ever spoke with you was at Point Park in the fall of 2016. It was you, who else was it? Bill Hillgrove and Paul Staggerwald spoke at Point Park.
Did like
and I was
a forum.
The head broadcaster at Mount Union. I called 130 games there in my 4 years of school. And I was asking you, I wanted pointers for Mount Union football, if you don't know. When I was there, my senior year.
I think I remember this.
Yes.
Were you wondering, well, what do you do because you win so much?
Yes, we had blowouts every game, and I
I'll
said,
never forget
what do
that
I talk
conversation.
about?
I didn't know that. Noah, after this event, we did like a forum, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
Bill, Paul, Bill Hillgrove Steelers, Paul did Penguins, and I was doing Pirates. And afterward, kids were hanging around and asking questions, and you and another kid.
Yeah, there's another
They stayed after?
my color commentator.
What's that?
Did they stay after?
Well, we stuck around.
Yeah.
You know.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I love kids that do
my,
that.
my broadcast partner, who now works for the Arizona Diamondbacks, he works in the business office. But yeah, AJ Jolio, I was like, I want to
cool
stay
name.
after, and other guys were like asking for pictures and stuff, and I actually think I did get a photo with you, but I was like, I'm here to get information. Like, I want to learn.
Because I actually use not your name from now on, but I've talked about you and I've talked to others,
Is that right?
aspiring broadcasters, who ask about, you know, what do you do when your team loses a lot? But you're the first person that says, what do you do? My team wins too much. That's hilarious. That's what he said. My team wins too much.
Good problem to have, I guess.
In my 4 years at college, my college football team lost 4 games. 2 of those were in the national championship.
Incredible.
My freshman and sophomore year, they lost the national title. My junior year, they won unbeaten. My senior year, on senior night, they lost their first regular season game. It snapped a 115-game win streak. And then we lost in the national semifinal. My senior, that was the last football game.
Where was this?
Called Mount Union. It's the Alabama of Division III football. They have guys in the NFL. Nick Sirianni is an alum there. Iowa State's head coach Matt Campbell, Dom Capers. I could go on and on.
It's so under the radar.
Yeah.
You think about that. 13 Division III national championships since 1993.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
What's also incredible is the mascot.
The Purple Raiders, baby.
Wait.
A
Purple
macaw?
Raiders?
Is
The
it
Purple
a
Raiders.
macaw?
Hey.
Macaw, and you want to know what macaw stands for? Is Mount Union College always wins. That is what we call
No.
our mascot.
Wait a second.
That's called a culture, my friend.
Wait a minute,
Yes.
but wait a second. But the macaw hasn't always been the mascot.
That's the mascot. Yeah, that's our
Only
physical...
since the team has started winning.
No. That's been for a while.
They
They
predestined
just use that
it.
as an acronym now.
Yes,
Hey,
and it's not
predestined.
Well, it's funny now because now it's the University of Mount Union, so people are like, oh, but macaw,
That's
yeah,
hilarious.
that's the parrot, that's our mascot, and but
But
our
it's
team, we're
you
the
said a
Purple
Raider.
Yes, we're the Purple Raiders, but it's like the Pirates, and they have the pirate parrot. Macaw is our pirate
That's like-
parrot.
I go to MTSU, right? I'm on MTSU. We have a blue raider. It's a horse. It's a Pegasus.
Is it purple?
No, it's blue. And he throws lightning bolts
It's
and he
not
flies.
a purple horse or blue horse.
Yeah.
Did you write for the Dynamo?
I did. I was the sports editor for the Dynamo for 3 years. I was
What a
the-
great name. There's some good names
That's
coming out
that
right
was our
now.
school newspaper.
Dynamo.
I found some old features I wrote while I was moving stuff out of my dad's house. this past
Where's the
weekend.
Dynamo come from, I wonder?
I don't know that
Oh.
one. I do
But you
not know
wrote
that.
for the Dynamo.
I wrote
Somebody
for the
really like
Dynamo.
Domino's?
You did play-by-play.
I did
Oh, that's what it was,
play-by-play. And then
Were you ever a macaw once in a while? Did you
no, but
jump in that
there was
mascot
one time I was
costume?
in a fraternity, and one kid, there was a long line to get in a party we were throwing, and he tried to use the flex while I'm the mascot. And
He
I
should have
said,
shown up in the.
I said, if you come back here with the mascot head, you can come in.
Absolutely.
And he came in.
No way.
We were all trying to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
great.
actually, I've been started this thing. I take pictures with mascot heads that are laying around. I'm up to like 6 or 7.
In a next Lee Corso.
You
Yeah. it's like-
had some? I'm sorry.
oh, I've got about 6 or 7.
How'd you get them?
If it's lying around and I'm at an event, I throw it on.
I will say.
You
Take a
don't
quick picture.
have them in your house.
No. Those things are huge. They're gross.
Well, Mark Faracco is here on set. He was a former sales director for the Pirates, and he and I.
Heard he's great at the unicycle too.
He's very good. Yeah, very
Yeah,
good at that.
yeah.
But I don't know if he was with us one night. We were at old Frank and Wally's over at Duquesne, which is no longer there. But one night, so we'll get into this later, but I was a backup parrot. And I used to have that thing in the back of my car. And one night,
You drove around with it.
late at night, I took that parrot costume head, put it on my head, and started thumbing for rides.
Anybody stop?
At midnight on Forbes. Oh, people were honking their horns.
I would have stopped. Come on in, parrot.
So, statute of limitations. I can't get in trouble now, I don't think. Anyhow, so you write for the paper.
Yeah.
You do play-by-play.
Mm-hmm.
He's a
And
bouncer, obviously, because he's letting people into a party.
bouncer.
Yeah.
Sometimes trying on the mascot head. But at what point did you really know that you had a shot at being a professional writer?
So that actually came a lot more recently. When I graduated, I wanted to work more in radio.
Which was when? When did you graduate?
I graduated college in 2017. After I graduated, I had a couple of GA positions offered to me to be the head voice of colleges. One was Westminster, the other was Walsh. I had a couple of other schools, but I thought, you know what? No, I need to get into the workforce. I need to get experience. So I accepted a part-time job at KDK Radio right out of college and just said, I'm going to build from here. And so that started at KDK Radio, then I started writing for the Beaver County Times part-time and freelance for the Trib. Then by doing all of that, my bosses at now Odyssey made me the pre- and post-game show producer for 93.7 The Fan. And that's where we saw each other in the press box in those days. So that was in 18 and 19. But my first 2 years out of college, I had about 8 or 9 sources of income just to get by.
Jeez.
And I was just juggling podcasts.
So you're just a straight freelancer.
Production,
wow.
Writing, video, radio, anything. All 3 of these things, anything I could do.
We found one, Brownie.
Yes,
a young hustler. A young hustler.
You got
Did
that
news
right.
for a year, came back, worked at an online site where I was doing more multimedia stuff. Left that place to go full-time to the Beaver County Times. Their head sports writer retired. And I just thought, you know what, it's time to get something.
Who was the head
Mike Byers was the guy's name. And I went to the Beaver County Times in the winter of early spring of 2021. And that's when I discovered that writing was my greatest strength. That out of everything that I'd done in my career, be it production, running around to get people coffee, writing on the side, doing on-camera stuff, I just realized that what it all came down to, what I love doing most, is telling stories. And so
good for you.
I figured out that if I take my time and construct it, and I can really tell a special story. And at the Beaver County Times, I told a lot of really, really cool stories and received some recognition, and the Post-Gazette found me. I talked to them for a little bit, and they brought me on. I covered Pitt for 2 seasons, and then Jason Mackey got promoted. I filled his shoes. So that's how I got to the Post-Gazette.
Beaver County Times, was that Parado or Mano?
Yes, Parado worked there. So the Beaver County Times, I think, is the AAA
that's a good call.
for Pittsburgh media.
Yeah.
If you look at all the people, Ron Cook started there, Parado started there. Who else? Mike Byers had a really good career. Chris Harlan is a great high school reporter for the Trib. Who's there? Pursuta, who works at DVE now and does all the Steelers stuff. A lot of their list of alumni is very strong, and my dad recommended that to me when I was first looking to get there the first time in 2017. It was a pointer I actually learned at the forum was look at places that have a history of, when you're young, giving young people opportunities and see what those young people did with those opportunities. And so I looked at Beaver County Times and I just thought, this is a place that's very well respected, has a lot of readers, great area to cover high school sports, especially high school football, with Aliquippa being there and all these other great schools. And at that time, they had just stopped covering pro sports. They had been bought out, and they were trying to reduce staff. So they were looking for a young, motivated person who can do multiple things, who could work on the desk, but also cover games, who also could edit things, multimedia, or just edit copy, be a little be the Jerry Triolo,
Yes.
And my nickname when I went there at first was the Barnacle, because I took the bottom of the barrel stories. I started my career writing about high school girls rugby, elementary school powerlifting, and my mentality was, if I can make these stories interesting, then I'm going to have no issue.
Probably learned a lot.
Writing. I learned so much. And it makes me grateful now that, where I started, like going back, and I remember the first game I covered for the paper, it was a boys soccer game, Swickley Academy versus Freedom Area, 1A, which is the lowest classification in the state. It was a 1-0 game in the rain, boring. But my first story I wrote for a newspaper as an employee, I got a front page of the sports section. And I kept that, and I was like, this is where you started. Now remember how far you get to go. And so when I'm covering, Paul Skeens striking out Ohtani, it's like, you know what? Like, we deserve to be here. We grinded it, and we grinded through it, and now you get to appreciate this because of, you're passionate about telling stories, and you love sports, and you trusted the process, and this is what happened.
Now, have you reached the pinnacle, or you?
I don't know. I've never set my sights on a level or a title, really. Just because this field's, it's always evolving, especially now. You just look at the innovative things that exist, and especially in the baseball space with all these new platforms, former players obviously getting involved in it as well. There's so many opportunities. So I don't know if beat reporting is something I want to do for 30, 40 years, just because of the travel and everything. But
guys have done that, haven't they?
Guys have done that. My mentality is I want to tell stories. I want to talk about sports. And I want to do that on platforms where my words can reach an audience.
What's your favorite story so far?
My favorite story I've written all time? There's a couple. So I'll go with two. My first one was, these were both written at the Beaver County Times, and I don't think I'd have my job now if I didn't write these. The first one was, when I was growing up, there's a kid named Russell Schell, who was a year older than me. He was a running back at Hopewell. And this kid was the best, for my money, the best high school football player that this area has ever had. And that's saying something.
True.
But he was the state's all-time leading rusher, and he never even played in a state playoff game. So he ran for 10,000 plus yards despite having a short season every year. He'd get 40 carries a game, and he was 15 minutes down the road from where I grew up. So this kid was a legend.
Wow.
And Alabama wanted him, Ohio State wanted him, but his senior year, he got his girlfriend pregnant with twins. And so that kind of ruined his recruitment. He goes to Pitt. He gets in some issues off the field, leaves Pitt after a year, goes to WVU, plays there for 3 years, but kind of fizzles out, and no one had ever heard of him. So I found out where he was when I was at the Beaver County Times. I tracked him down, convinced him to meet up with me for lunch one day.
Oh, man.
And I said, hey, man, I just want to, so many people, it's been 10 years since you last played high school sports. People are wondering what you're up to. He was a huge name at this time when he was, playing high school football.
What years would that have been?
It was 2012 was his senior year.
Okay.
So 2010 through 2012, he was. ESPN the magazine covered his now wife's baby shower.
Jeez.
When he was in high school.
Jeez.
That's how big of a deal he was, right? So
Man.
I was like, everyone has their assumptions of what you're up to in life. I want to tell him. So I followed him around for a month. I watched him play pickup basketball with his kids in their backyard. I went to work with him. I sat in his basement and drank whiskey and talked about high school football.
No kidding.
Days, we had a lot of mutual friends because we grew up super close to each other. And I wrote this long form piece, and it's one that I'm very, very proud of. Ran in USA Today.
Wow.
And then the other one was, I love sharing this story.
That's really cool.
The next year, when I was at the Beaver County Times, once a quarter, I would try to do something like that, like a big long-form story. I wrote one piece on a kid who suffered an aneurysm and lost all control of his right arm, so he learned how to play baseball one-handed. He would catch the ball in his mitt, throw the mitt off, throw it in. It was incredible. I wrote about that. But my favorite one, aside from Schell, would be in what would that have been, 2019. Or no, not 2019, 2022, excuse me. The spring of 2022, there was this distance runner at Moon Area High School. Her name was Maya Cochran. She's one of the most accomplished high school athletes in the history of Pennsylvania. She was closing in on her final state championship, and one of my coworkers tried to interview her. And this girl had a little bit of an ego. She said, interviews are boring. Huh. And he was upset, and I said, you know what, then make them fun. He goes, well, how would you do that? And I said, well, what'd she like to do? She likes to run. Interview her while you go on a run together. And he goes, who's crazy enough to do that? So before I even pitched the story to her.
Here comes Noah Hiles.
I would go on
I love that.
3 days
That's
a week.
great.
Be different.
3 days a week, I would go on a 5-mile run.
Get out.
And I would talk on the phone with my friends or family while I would run. So I'd get used to having a conversation with my cardio.
Wow.
And I lived in the North Hills at the time, so I'm going up and down hills and everything. And this is in the wintertime. So I had to build up the lung capacity just so I could
So you're
hang
like
with her.
Ali of riders.
Yeah,
Get ready for
tried.
that fight, baby.
So
That's great.
by the time I pitched it to her, her mom had to sell her on the idea. And when we did the story,
Man.
when I would run with her, I got a quarterback wristband where they'd have the plays in there. I'd write my questions inside the wristband where the quarterback would see the plays. And I'd hold up a tripod, and she would be running where Brownie was, and I'd run next to her. And I would be filming the interview, and I would read off the questions while I was running. And
I love that he was running.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Could have
great.
been, could have been on a bike. Could have done a lot of things. But the man's running.
Her cool down mile pace was 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh.
She did this with no shoes on in her socks, just inside. And there was one time where my photographer was like, I didn't get a good shot. I need you to do another lap. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
I cannot
like, I'm
do
dying.
this. Yeah.
Can I get some roller skates?
Yeah, so, but I would take part in her stretching with her. And so
That's so
I
cool
did
because
this-
that's how you
Yeah.
really
and so,
grasp
exactly,
the story.
and you connect. You show
Incredible.
an athlete, in my opinion, that I'm not just another guy sticking a recorder in your face.
1000%.
I wanna tell your story. And this girl I knew had something to say. I just had to dig it out of her. And right toward
that takes time.
I was having weekly meetings with the editors and how's this going? I'm lying to them. Oh, it's going great. She's telling me she was giving me nothing for a while. And then right before I had to submit my first draft, I broke through, and we sat down in the bleachers, and we talked for 2 hours. What was supposed to be a 20-minute chat was 2 hours, and she gave me the best interview that I've ever had in my career. And I wrote this story, and it was cool because it's the only story I've ever really written in the first person, where I was a character in it.
Oh my gosh.
And it was something really special that
cool.
I always cherish. Yeah.
That's cool.
I've told some really cool ones, obviously about the Pirates, but access like that doesn't necessarily come when you're covering Major League Baseball.
Which it should. but
Which,
it
I
doesn't.
mean, and you know what? Here's my thing. If you do a good enough job and you build relationships, it will.
And
It's
hard-
not going to come with one
But it
year.
is harder now than ever before.
It is absolutely, because guys have their own platform. And why should they trust you to tell their story when they can tell it
Well,
themselves?
and then, but a lot of times guys don't understand how powerful the platform is.
Yes.
They do have a platform, but they don't utilize it properly because they have an agent, they have a
Mm-hmm.
family, they have a organization, a lot of things coming at them when it's like, bro, this is your story to tell.
And my message to those people is, you do baseball better than anyone. You know, you're in the 1% of baseball. I don't know what percentile I'm in, but I'm in a high percentile of storytellers. And I want to tell your story. You need to tell your story to me, but allow me to be the narrator, and you're the character, and allow me to help craft this with you.
That's cool.
And that's my ultimate goal. So if I had to like pick a dream career, just seeing, I think the way we consume long form storytelling now more than anything else is by sports documentaries. Tomorrow, Netflix has a new series about the 04 ALCS that I'm super excited to watch, and stuff like that. So I think 20 years from now, if I'm sitting here making documentaries while also getting to still write and do podcasts, that would be my ideal career.
Is there? Do you have anybody yet in mind? Because again, you're the Pirates guy now.
Mm-hmm.
That you're kind of thinking along those lines, or you know, in the back of your mind, you think, boy, I'd like to really. It's.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess you'd have to do guys like McCutcheon, Cruz, Reynolds, guys that are mainstays. Skeens, of course.
You know, it'd be a great one. Daniel McCutcheon.
His story.
His story.
I was
He's
talking
a
about current Pirates, but yeah, they're former Pirates.
multi-millionaire. He built some car washes called Big League Car Wash, and I think his LLC's all, I think it's all washed up. I can't remember. But like, huge personality. But like, there's so much to a person because he got hit in the face in baseball, right? Failed a drug test that was a giant mistake. But like, there's so many dudes out there that have
That's
an
interesting.
incredible story.
I wonder
but
about
it's
that.
kinda
No, about the
post-baseball.
interest, the reader interest, and this is where you come in. You're a Gen Z guy.
I'm a millennial, right at the end, right at the cut line, right at the end.
Hey, will
line.
you guys explain this Gen Z and millennial stuff?
I think it's just if you're born after 1996, you're Gen Z. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1995.
Okay.
So I'm
Okay.
right at the
So
edge.
what am I,
You're-
85?
Yeah, you're a millennial.
Heh.
There we
Let's
go.
go.
Yep.
I'm a Stone Age.
Yeah.
They call us
you're a
Stone
you're
Ager.
You're a
well
boomer.
seasoned vet.
I'm a boomer.
Yeah. You go bushes, boomer.
So when it comes to what Michael's talking about, where you would, the general you as a writer, might want to dive into a former player like Daniel McCutcheon, who happens to be the guy who was on the mound in one of the most historic
Yeah.
games in Pirates history, the 19-inning
Yep.
game. He was on the mound, the losing pitcher. But that's just one of many, even though the Pirates, aside from the 13, 14, 15 teams, you mentioned Jack Wilson, Jason Kendall.
Yep.
Do you think there's enough interest out there where those stories could be told? Like, where are they now type deals?
Yeah, we actually did a series like that at the Post-Gazette last year. It was called Where Yin's Now. And it won an award. We covered a whole bunch of different, my contributions. My favorite, this is another really good story I did. While I was in Charlotte, Jeff Reed, former Steelers kicker, owns a Steelers bar in Charlotte.
Oh
and
my
I had
gosh.
interviewed him previously, so I just happened to be there. And so while
Go ahead. Yeah, we've got an audience here.
Yeah.
They're waving to us.
Whoa.
while I was there, I hit him up. I was like, hey, can I just come to your bar and see what it's like watching you run a business? And so I wrote, that was like my story on Jeff Reed, was
So cool.
just being a fly on the
That
wall
is
watching
really cool.
Jeff Reed take selfies with fans
Oh,
during
man.
a Steelers game, and then also change kegs, bring bags of ice in from his truck.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
Jason wrote one on Turner Ward. That was one of the guys that we focused on. I wrote, my other ones were Carl Krauser, former Pitt point guard. George LaRocque was highlighted in this series, former defenseman for the Penguins. So yeah, I do think there are. I think the key is just finding something. It doesn't even have to be the most interesting star. It's just something interesting. Like,
Yeah.
It's a human
Well, you
element.
talk
it's
about pulling a story out of
human
it.
interest. Like, I think the best story I told this year was about Isaac Mattinson. I wrote about just kind of his journey and the adversity that he went through earlier in his career. And I found this out by just talking to him at Curve Media Day. I saw that he was a Pitt grad, and I just got done covering Pitt. And I was like, this is just mutual interest that we can make small talk with. And I found out his incredible adversity that he had gone through, and I got to tell that story. And then I had no idea that this guy was even going to make AAA,
Yeah.
let alone, come and pitch a little bit in the big leagues, make it back for the first time since 2021. It's stuff like that sometimes you stumble into, sometimes someone leaks it to you, sometimes it just comes organically, like you just build relationships with people in an organization, in a clubhouse, and they say, yo, have you talked to him about this? Mm-hmm. And that's how it starts.
It's true. Like, everybody has a great story to tell. Everybody,
Yeah, no
every
doubt.
single
No
human
doubt.
being has a
Yes.
great story to tell. We just happen to be in a high-profile sport,
Right.
that allows you this
Yeah.
platform to tell incredible stories. In fact, that's one of the things I think I recall talking to you about. That wondering what you do if your team, in your case, wins too much. And
He's got an opposite effect now.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
come on now.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that regardless of the team winning or losing, there are always stories.
There are
to
always
tell,
stories to tell. Sometimes you can't rush it,
Yeah.
and that's something you have to work with.
Explain that a little bit more.
Well, it's just sometimes there's more there, and
Well said.
someone might not be comfortable telling you through 10 minutes in a clubhouse around their teammates. But if you can get them on the field when no one else is around, and you prove to them, and I think in a lot of experiences, sometimes the stuff that's talked about off the record, and if you can keep that off the record, and guys will say, you know what, I trust him. He's not looking for something quick. It's easy to just get something small
And then throw it out
immediately
there.
and run out there, and you get that dopamine hit of, okay,
Which
turn
is-
it around quick.
And all
it was
that is
great.
just generic
It's-
stuff.
it
And
was
it's
generic,
clickbait. It's a title.
Yeah.
or sometimes, even if it is something worth it. There's been times where I've done interviews with a guy, and it's like, all right, I could turn this into something cool today, and it would be a 7 out of 10. And my bosses would love a 7 out of 10, right? Or I can hold on to it. I could really comb through it. I could point out, we need to hit more on this, this, and this. And I want this outside perspective on that, and another outside perspective on this. And I spend another month on it, and we can make that a 10 out of 10 story. And that's what I
How do
always
you
shoot
spend a
for.
month on something and then turn it into? Because it's really just a short form. It's not. You
Sometimes.
don't have. You know what I mean? But I mean, what are you
Sometimes
talking?
you got to let it play out as well. Where another.
I'd be
fun-
doing like 7 parters, Brownie.
Yes.
Sometimes
'Cause
you
I'd
can
be in
do
such
that.
detail,
and
like,
that-
this is
that's-
what's
and
happening.
That's the other challenge of it is there's a different way to tell stories.
Yeah,
Like there's
no doubt.
sometimes where you're a part of it. Like I said with the runner, right? I didn't go into that knowing that I was going to be a part of it, but it kind of organically formed that way. Where it's
You
like
should do that in baseball, by the way.
I would love
It's
to do
something
that.
I've always wanted to do, and I've tried year in year out with the network. Is go and train with the guys.
Yeah, or
I'm
train,
still
or
at the age-
just go on
yeah.
the field and show me, like, stand
But-
at third base with Cochran and say, what are you looking at here?
Yeah.
There's a left-handed hitter, there's a runner on
But
first, there's
just
two outs.
standing there is different,
Yeah,
right? Like even when you watch A-Rod and those guys do it,
Yeah.
I just whatever. Like I'm a big belief of like, let me catch your bullpen. Let me
Well,
take
it's
the ground balls
what
with
Noah
you.
did when he ran with
Yeah,
her.
because
I mean,
that creates a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. Let me
And
throw
that's-
you BP.
That's
Like those little things that go a little bit further to say, I'm not just invested, I'm all in.
And it's funny that this is connecting with you, Fort, because I think that this resonates with players so much. When players get the sense that you're just genuinely interested in the game,
Yeah.
right? Like Jason Kendall, the book that he wrote, I apologize, the guy who co-wrote it with him. The way that started was just a guy going up to Kendall and being like, you know more about baseball than me. I want you to explain it to me. Tell me how you see the game, because you get this. I love it like you love it. I can't love it exactly the way you
Yeah,
love
seeing
it.
it from
because-
a different perspective.
Yeah, but like we both love this thing. It's just you see
Yeah.
it differently. And so like there's been many times where like I remember there were a couple times where Paul would say one thing, and a day later I'd pull him aside and be like, hey, this isn't for a story. I like baseball, man. I wanna know like why is that? Why do you do these things? Like you mentioned this, and I didn't want to push back here because I'd already got my questions in, and you're talking for 7 minutes, and we're ready to wrap this up. But like just out of curiosity, like what did you mean by this? Can you explain this in greater detail? And just the reception that will get, not necessarily just from him, but from a lot of people. It's like, oh, like he didn't want anything from that. That's not from a story. That's just talking ball.
Mm-hmm.
And players, regardless of how media accommodating they are and how friendly they are, they love the game, man. And if they find out that you love the game and want to talk about it, like they'll sit down and they'll explain things
Oh
to you.
yeah.
Lee
I-
Judge, by the way, is the guy that wrote
Yes,
it with
yes.
Throwback.
Great book.
I cheat. Throwback. A big league catcher tells how the game is really played.
One of my
Jason
plain
Kent.
books this year.
Is that right?
I have a list of plain books that I love being confined in an area with no Wi-Fi.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
can just
nice.
walk in and
Oh, you have
read.
to share that list with us.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
trying to read more.
What are your type of books? Do you get all kinds?
I mean,
Sports,
obviously
mainly?
sports.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I read this year, is a tell-all of the history of ESPN. It's called "Those Guys Have All the Fun."
Yeah.
That's a really good one. I've read some basketball ones. I'm about to start I Came as a Shadow. It's the biography of Big John Thompson, the Georgetown men's basketball coach. I just like learning about things that I wasn't around for, or stuff that like I mean
He
obviously.
likes to learn about the boomers.
I just like learning about.
Why are you looking at me?
What do you mean? Boomer?
Hey, you just reminded me of a moment when you were interning,
Okay.
doing the pre and post game interviews in the clubhouse.
Mhm.
I was always struck by the questions that you asked
Oh, is that right?
because
How bad they were?
no,
No.
I think there's a method to your madness, because I think that I get the impression you didn't care in a good way.
Yeah.
Like you would ask questions that nobody. There seems to be decorum.
That feels like it's kind of
decorum
fallen
makes it
off,
sound
so
like
that's
you didn't
cool.
have decorum. That's not what I'm saying. But it's.
He had the cojones.
I
don't
was
know, maybe.
too young and naive
Or to know better.
understand, to know better.
So
exactly.
that was. I guess that's what I always wondered about you. I always thought when you're asked these questions, I'd be driving home, listening to the post game, and I could hear you ask the question. I'm going, yee! I
Do you
can't
think
believe
it-
you just asked that.
Do you think it's
And
I
then I,
think
wondered,
that's a blessing.
By the way, then I wondered, the more you go along, there's this innocence when you enter this game
Yes.
that you can't help but get caught up in the rest of life around this game, and then you become what everybody else is.
Well, it's
You
a
lose the
balance.
innocence.
It's a
Yeah.
balancing act. And I think at that point in time, I remember I was just a little soldier. That's what I was
But you
when
got
I was
great
when I was
answers
young.
that nobody else got.
And
Well,
I
'cause he asked
remember
the questions nobody else would.
I would go.
I know, but
I
that's
would-
my
yeah.
point.
I would go to my bosses, who at the time was Jeff Hathorn, who's a great guy for 93.7 The Fan, and I would say, "What do you need from me?" Because my job at that point in time was to set up the equipment and get sound and write stuff for the website. But I could write about whatever. But I just would say, what questions do you want me to ask? And I would ask that before and after every game. And whatever they told me, I would go do, because that's what I was told to do. It's like Forrest Gump, because you told me to, drill sergeant.
Hey, ask this question.
Yeah.
Okay, drill sergeant.
Yeah, and like that's how it was. And now
Jenny.
Jenny.
you also have to have, as you evolve into this, you have to have the ability to realize that your role is different. So at that point in time, I was just some kid
Yeah.
I was
It's-
not on the road. These people didn't know who I was, and I was more just getting it for the place I work for. Now I have to have the realization that it's like, all right, where it's like I have a different role. I have a different role just in this whole, ecosystem, and I have a different role as far as my profession.
You gotta show up every day.
I have to show up every day.
Yeah.
These guys know my name. They see what I write. They see what I post on social media, and it's also my first year. So if I come in guns a-blazing in year one, then that might not rub everyone the right way. So you want to ease into it. You want to show people who you are, and then you can start doing a little bit more with story requests, with the way you question things, with the way you go about building sources, getting information, everything. You've got to lay the foundation before you start building, your beautiful living room.
Yeah.
You're a rookie.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, that's more about them than it is about you. That's playing the game.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Which
and
stinks, but it's a reality.
Well, but that's the reality.
Yeah,
and
man,
then when
that's
you're
life again.
Yeah, when you're
Yeah.
young, like at that part, like what Brownie referenced, I was playing the game the way I was supposed to. It was
Yeah.
like, I'm young. It doesn't
You gotta
matter.
earn your stripes.
If I ask a stupid question, guess what? Everyone expects this 22-year-old kid with braces to ask a stupid question. So that's what I'm gonna do.
So we need more 22-year-old kids with braces.
But then
Got
you
it.
work your way into this role where it's like, all right, so now we get to start over, and it's more relationships. So now when I ask,
You had 20. You had braces at 22.
yeah, that's
I'm
a whole
sorry.
different. Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah,
It was
I had
worse
him,
thing
I had
I-
him
I had him
twice.
later in life too. I did too.
Did
Yeah,
you?
I
Now they get the
I was-
Invisalign. That's
I was
crazy.
so mad. Yeah,
Stupid dentist.
yeah, no.
My best friend's a dentist, so I always make fun of him.
But now it's more. I want to build relationships and really, and it sucked at the beginning of this season for me because I went from a beat at Pitt where I had a ton of sources. I knew some things before the coaches would know, and you go to this where some people tell you some stuff, but like you're kind of starting over from ground one, and I don't want to come off like I'm trying too hard or doing too much in the first 2-3 months of the job, because this is a long-term game, and you build your foundation. And by the back end of the year, I felt like I was able to ask some decent questions. And when people know who you are and respect you, they might not always react in the very instant well to what you ask, but they can appreciate that, hey, let me talk to him, see what's going on, and we can get more information that way.
Yeah.
And so it's a long-term play. So
That's
I
why
look
it took
forward.
5 months for you to ask me your first question.
Is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, about hitting. I was like,
Yeah.
there he is.
Yeah. Well, it was just more
It's a respect thing, and I
yeah.
appreciate it.
You wanna
It's smart.
ease
It's the right way to do
you
it.
wanna ease into it, and I always look at the off season as a really good opportunity. I don't have an obligation to write 15 baseball stories a week like I do when they're playing baseball games every day. So now the off season is a time to build relationships. It's a time to talk to everyone that I can to learn more about this game, this team, and just overall. Like sometimes I'm talking to people and it has nothing to do with the Pirates or baseball. It's just get to know me.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to be around you more than I'm around my girlfriend, my best friends, my family. We probably should know each other. And so you don't want to be the guy who spills his life story on opening day and you're like, ugh, this is a little bit overbearing. You want to ease into that.
I kind of want to throw somebody in there just to do that, see what happens.
There are people who do that.
Yeah, I know.
you know?
It's just funny to think about. Oh, it's good.
How many years at Pitt?
Two.
For you?
2 seasons.
Uh,
I covered football for 2 seasons, basketball for 2 seasons, yes.
And any memorable moment? I guess maybe I'll start with the most memorable moment of the year when it comes to post-game interviews. You were a local headliner.
For Pitt?
No, this year.
Oh, yeah, there was that, yeah.
There was that. What is this?
This was the Derek Shelton moment.
Yes, there was that.
So Shelton's been the manager at 5 years, and in his 5th year, it's the first time I think he knew it.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. There's a lot of pressure. Pirates are losing.
Did he
And
get yelled at?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Oh, that was
actually,
you.
no, I'm going to go back. That's relatively speaking, got yelled at. I mean, that was nothing compared to stuff over the years in other cities.
Right,
even
yeah,
here.
no, but
He got righteous.
I've
little bit.
never actually
It
shared
wasn't terrible.
my experience on this.
No,
so.
hey, listen. seen a lot worse.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
I mean, way worse.
But I didn't know because I could see it.
It
after
was
the fact.
unique to him.
Things, unique to him.
Yes,
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
unique
For
to
him,
him.
it was a
Very
big
unique.
deal.
So that instance, obviously, it came.
Well, let's go back because people who are watching or listening
Yes.
may not know the
Yeah,
story.
what was the
Pirates
question?
are
too?
losing.
So the Pirates
game,
are
the
playing in
question.
Wrigley Field. They're getting no hit. They're getting absolutely trounced by the Chicago Cubs. And
I
the
remember that game.
It's the top of the ninth inning, and Rowdy Tellez is out to pitch. And I remember seeing him out there, and it was the third time he'd pitched in 12 days.
And he hadn't pitched we hadn't pitched a position player all year.
Season.
And then all of a sudden, Tellez is out on
And
the
this
mound.
is in September where, there's an expanded roster and everything, and there is no off day the next day. And with Tellez, and obviously the idea of a position player pitching rubs certain people the wrong way. And
I have
you
a
can
theory behind that,
You
by
can
the way.
have your
I'm
opinion
one.
on it either way, but as just someone who's there, it's like, okay, well, this has to be addressed. And it's not the main story of the game. The main story of the game is they're getting no hit, right? But this is another footnote from this event, that this is the third time this happened. So I had one inning to sit there and think, okay, well, let's view this from a wide lens. This guy's probably not in the best of moods. The season
That's a
didn't.
good deduction
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Sherlock.
We're,
The
not, we're
season
also
did
not playing well at this point.
Yeah,
either.
the season has gone terribly. It fell off a cliff in August. They're getting no hit. They're getting outscored. And I know that Shelton he hates putting a position player out there. It's something that he gets anxious from. And I think every manager feels that way because it's a health risk, it's a spectacle, it's a whole bunch of things. So it's like we've got to craft a way to construct this question. And I tried to do that. But the reality was there probably wasn't a way to ask it. At least in my opinion, that's not going to upset someone because that's the last thing that everyone wants to talk about if you're a manager in that spot. You don't want to talk about that. And I get why
Yeah,
he
what do
did
you
it.
want to talk about?
Right.
I mean,
nothing.
What
It's
do you
just-
want to talk about?
you wanna-
Hey, you guys are no hit.
Touche.
Tell us
Yeah.
about how you're not hitting.
So we go down there and I worked it in and I believe it. I tried to basically, and I didn't expect him to take this olive branch, but my mentality was like, throw in the fact that there's no off day tomorrow and maybe extend that olive branch. And I don't think he'll take it, but it's more of a fact. It's like, look, man, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I have to ask about this.
Give him an escape hatch if he
And,
needs
and,
it.
and
Yeah.
like, yeah, and again, I didn't expect, but I was hoping that it could be like, I have to ask about this. Here's me throwing this little caveat in here just to show that I'm not doing this maliciously. But it rubbed him the wrong way. He reacted the way he did. And as soon as he did, the first thing that went in my head was, well, this is going to be a thing. It was like just that. And I was like, and I wasn't upset with how he reacted. Like,
we're emotional
so
beings.
many people like reach, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, dude, my coaches
Again, he didn't.
growing up playing baseball and football ream me out 10 times harder than that.
He
I've
didn't
had
ream you
bosses.
out either. That's
Yeah,
the thing
it
about
was
it. Again,
just,
this is all.
he disagreed. I looked at it like I
He
was
said,
an
"Come on,
umpire.
Noah. Come on, Noah,
He
you know."
disagreed with something a judgment that I made. He voiced his disagreement, and I knew the next day that we would show up and we would be fine. However, I was like, you know what? It was obviously talked about a lot the next day.
Again, just so people know, what he said was basically, "Come on, Noah."
Yes, he
You-
said
you're better than that.
He said I was better than that, and I could have asked a better question. And so
And you said I had to ask it.
Yes.
This is the exchange.
Right,
You didn't
yes.
say it loudly. You said, "Well, I had
I
to
said
ask it."
I had to ask.
Yeah, and he goes, "No, you didn't."
And so the next day, a lot of people wanted me to come on the radio and talk about that. And my big thing that I've always tried to focus on is my job is to tell the story, not be the story. And if I went on the radio and talked about, a verbal altercation or whatever with the manager of the team I cover, I'm becoming the story. So I said, no, I'm gonna let you guys talk about it. You're free to talk about whatever you want on your show, but I'll sit out and I'm just gonna lay low. The only person I wanted to talk to the next day was Shelty. And I went into his office and we had a really good discussion. And I'll keep what we discussed between him and myself. But I think the grand scheme of thing, or the big takeaway was like, he probably didn't interpret it exactly how I was trying to ask it.
Yeah.
And I maybe could have framed it differently, but it's a learning experience from me. I don't regret asking it, but it's more, sometimes you could be a little bit more direct with what you're trying to get at. And maybe I could have framed it differently. But it was cool to know that, like, part of me also thought it's like, if a different reporter asked that, he probably doesn't feel comfortable giving them that type of response.
Yeah, definitely showed a relationship.
There is an element where it's like, if you have to have some sort of credibility to even get that type of reaction, right? And then there is the other part of it was if he truly thought I was some hack, he wouldn't have opened his office door up to me the next day and let me sit there and talk with them for 20 minutes and, just pick each other's brain. Like I said, look, this is where I was going. I wasn't trying to upset you. Obviously that didn't work. But, and we exchanged how we both felt about the situation, and I think I grew from it. I think that he came to know me a little bit better from all of that, and it was a valuable experience at the end of the day.
How did you get along with the other coaches at Pitt?
At Pitt, it's a totally...
Capel, Narduzzi, I guess.
It's a totally different relationship than it is in professional sports. In college sports, especially in college football, it's very controlling because
what's different between Major League Baseball?
In Major League Baseball, you're dealing with adults who are making, and I guess in college sports, some of these guys are making more money than their coaches are now. But in reality, it's just a different. College football is so controlling; they don't want information out there. And there was times where in my experience now, like one small example, I remember in April, someone being on the IL and being in the clubhouse and seeing another reporter go up to him and be like, hey, how's the arm feeling? And I was like, you cannot do that in college sports. Like, if you were to ask, especially a college football coach, about injuries, they would say, we don't talk about injuries. We just don't do that.
Do you think that's changed now?
No. Until they legally make you have an injury report, there will be no change in that. And I remember the hour...
you could go to the player now.
Now I can, yeah. Now, or it's just like when a guy's on the IL, but like they're in Pittsburgh. It's like, hey, were you throwing a bullpen today? Stuff like that. Hey, were you doing running drills out there? And like that could be on record. Like they treat you like an adult, essentially, where there it's like they protect them a lot, and there's no open locker room. The access is so different. They decide... with Pitt football and basketball, they decide who we would talk to every week. They would just let us know 20 minutes beforehand, hey, you're getting this receiver, this linebacker, and this corner. And you're like, what can I write with that? There's no continuity.
It's a way to grow your brand right there.
Right, well, it's just, but that's not a jab at Pitt. It's just, that's how it works for a lot of places.
I understand that.
And I think just in that realm too, their whole thing is they want to control the information. They don't want to ever look like they don't have all the power. There were instances where they knew I was on the cusp of breaking something, and so they would release a statement that was 2 sentences long just so they could be the first ones to announce it. Or I would break something and two minutes later, a statement would come out where in professional sports, not just in baseball, they understand that, look, there's too many people involved for us to control every narrative. News is going to get broken. Stories are going to get out there. And whenever it does, it's our job as a team to react accordingly. But we can't control it, where in college sports, they wanted all the control. So that rubs some people wrong on the football side. I also think that I happened to cover Pitt football in one of their worst seasons in the last 20 years. So everybody was a little bit on edge for that. For basketball, I thought I had a really good relationship with Capel that actually started off rocky based off of some things one of his players did. My introduction to him was covering his team, was reporting on the highest recruit he had ever recruited at Pitt, highest rated recruit he had ever recruited at Pitt, like committing some seriously heinous crimes. And so that was our introduction. So we didn't start off well. But I was able to build a relationship with him to a point where, like, we still keep in touch. We were texting about Paul Skeens this summer and stuff like that. So I feel like both of them respected what I did. I was more friendly with Capel, but I think overall Pitt Athletics and I had a really good relationship. And now I wish them nothing but the best. I'm going to the game Thursday. I'm excited to watch them.
Nice. I want to circle back. I want to throw out this thought with position players pitching.
Okay.
So this year, I believe, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the most position players through over the last, decade or so? Is my
Okay.
guess.
Probably so. I believe it.
So
Yeah.
my thought is with pitch counts, them protecting young arms getting to big leagues faster than ever, why not have an Ozuna type or someone that can fill up the strike zone with adequate stuff for bullpens once a week? Why not have that on board?
Why does this have to happen nowadays?
If you're going to protect the Paul
this
Skeens
thing about
and
protection,
Chandler.
and by the way, Noah, I understand. Noah says the position player. They're
Listen,
worried.
I hate it. I'm just saying.
I understand.
Where
but,
the game's
but
at.
you brought it up. But you said something about position player Tellez. They're worried about it. Worried about a position player getting hurt because
No,
he's
it's
pitching?
it's more
it's
just
terrifying.
the comebacker.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Listen, I
Hey,
played, and I had a ball hit right at me. I had a ball hit
I understand
450
it's
feet.
terrifying. I understand there's risk. We're trying to take away the risk in everything. In
But
baseball and in
I'm
life.
not saying take care of the risk. I'm saying if I would have been on the mound prior to 20 years prior to that, I may have not. It took me a minute to throw a strike because I was like, they're going to hit this ball. I'm going to throw
And
this
it's
ball
why
away
you see guys.
at hitting speed.
I understand
so
that.
I tried to miss in, and these
I'm
guys
not-
took me 9,000 feet
I'm
deep.
not
And it's why you
advocating.
see guys throwing low velo now when positions players,
Yeah,
rather
so
than
they
trying to
pull
throw
it.
80,
But
because it's like,
that's
well,
an
then
art.
you have a chance to be ready.
Yeah, and
I'm not
that's an
advocating
art.
for position. I think
Yeah.
it's
I'm not
terrible.
advocating for it either. I'm just saying it's where the game is.
And
We saw it a lot.
I know, and
And there's a lot of guys playing.
What if you just rather? Another caveat
I'm
could
just
be.
thinking out loud.
There's
I
a
get it.
taxi
It's-
squad exists for a reason.
Well,
What
it's
if you just
cor-
had one
but
guy
look,
on taxi every
This
series?
is like taxes on America. We keep once you enter this stuff in these games, it's going to just build and build. It's out of control.
No, I'm not
We
saying-
just want
I'm
to
not
constantly
saying
do something.
it should
I
be
don't want
normal.
taxi squads. I don't want anything else. Pitch the
Play the
pitcher.
game.
Pitch the pitcher. Play the game. And
I
part of
agree.
it is, we're worried about a guy getting hurt. We did.
I'm not worried about guys
we
getting
just
hurt.
pitched him 3 straight days. So. Then pitch somebody else
I
and
agree.
make the starter
I agree.
pitch longer.
I agree.
It is, the starting pitcher
but
goes
if,
6
I'm
innings.
saying where it's at, and
And
you have
where-
no control over that.
Yes, you do.
Well, they put an inning.
You do
Paul
have
Skeens
control
threw
over
2
that.
innings in his last outing, and he looked dominant. Make it make sense.
But that's not true. I don't want a taxi squad because of that.
No, but him being protected all year is the reason why a Rowdy Tellez, why Jones is protected.
And
why,
that's why we need to have taxi squads?
No, I'm just saying, if you're going to protect these guys, you have to have the innings built
If you're
in.
going to protect, what does that mean? If
I
you're
don't
going
know.
to protect these guys.
Nobody will talk about it. Nobody will tell
Again,
exactly why.
all we want to do is just add stuff, add taxi squads, add designated
saying if I'm-
pitchers.
if I'm
it's
managing a team-
unbelievable, this game.
I agree.
Stop
I agree
it.
with everything you say. I don't believe in pitch counts to a certain extent. I do not believe in inning limits.
it's like-
I think you cannot put reins on a lion and say, go run and see how far you can run if you never find a threshold. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm saying the way it is.
The reason we changed the rule, put a runner at second base in the 10th inning, is because we didn't want another 19-inning game.
Which is stupid.
Because we didn't want another Daniel McCutcheon. Oh my goodness, where our bullpen's
But
tired.
yet, but
it's
yet,
crazy
but yet,
what's going on
no more
here.
19
And
inning
we
games.
just
But yet, we
concede.
had the most position players throwing.
And we're all
And we have
like
the
we're
most
all like
injuries.
we're all like lemmings in this game. I had this big discussion. Well, not big. Didn't turn out to be very big.
Here comes
but-
the hot box,
no,
folks.
with Hurdle one time, Clint Hurdle, about the DH, and how people started talking about the designated hitter coming into the National League, and everybody was silent about it.
There's no National League.
There is no. It's one big
It's
major
one
league.
league.
There's no. You're right. Years ago, they took away American League and National League umpires. They put it all in one umbrella. As soon as we started playing interleague games, this was inevitable. Bob Walk talked about that. It's inevitable. And I said, the reason it's inevitable, and I said this to Clint Hurdle, I said, do you want this is off the air. I said, do you want the DH? He goes, no. I said, why not? Because National League's a better game. Then fight.
Yeah,
But nobody did. We just rolled over.
exactly.
And this is, again, all this
And that's
new
what I'm
stuff
saying is
infiltrating.
like, who do you fight to? Nobody wants to listen.
Well, here's a writer here we're talking about right now.
Like I agree with what you're saying. Like I could lay
Noah
out my
has not
case
said
for
a
a
word
lot
in the
of
last like 5 minutes.
because
by the
he's
way.
taking it in. But like,
Yeah, it's
I can lay out my
interesting.
case for the pitching stuff. It's not making sense. We have more injuries than ever before. The taxi squad's not working because we have more injuries than ever before. Everything doesn't make sense. There's also protection of the players like never before. It all starts prior to them getting to the big leagues. You can see that very blatantly. But the fact is, once they get to the big leagues, if you're going to have to throw a position player, why not have someone well-versed? Because most guys or most teams have multiple guys like we did when I played here. Mercer was a closer in college. There's no reason that guy couldn't throw one inning every now and then to save a bullpen and maybe get some outs.
It will, because you know what will happen? It'll go beyond now and then.
No, it's because it would cost money.
No, well, maybe so. Maybe.
And, we don't want to get him hurt. It's just like it's always something
Yeah,
instead of like
once
looking
you-
what you have.
Once you open this Pandora's box,
But if you're gonna choose to do something, you're gonna have consequences no matter what, good, bad, or ugly. So you choose to protect. Like next year, we have a giant elephant in the room. How far can Skeens go? If we get in the postseason, none of these guys have thrown in October.
A bigger elephant
ever.
in the room than that, and here it is. The Pirates are not talking about this. Nobody is. In fact, the last press conference I recall, somebody asked about the rotation next year, and
5
these-
or 6 man.
5 days between starts. If
Well,
the
let me ask
Pirates,
you-
if the-
I
if
asked
the
about that,
Pirates
yeah.
are going to win
Yeah.
the division, Paul Skeens has to pitch every 5 days, not with days in between.
I'm being
He
naive.
And Jones and Keller have to pitch every.
I'm
that's-
being naive here. Has there ever been a 6-man rotation that have made it to the playoffs?
I mean,
I
a lot of
locked those up.
rotations now are more like 3 guys, and then you start off with your 5,
But
by the time it
go
gets
to
to
my
August and
question.
September,
6-man
you're just
rotation.
plug and play. Like
Bullpens are winning baseball games in the playoffs right now.
Personally, and that the reason I asked that question was because I was genuine. Because I think Keller was worse this year because he wasn't pitching on a 5-day.
I completely agree
Right.
because
I think
the mechanics
that's
didn't match
what
up.
he
I
was
completely
super
agree.
used to. And I think that now, the way they've built Skeens, they should be able to do that. And because of the depth.
No, hold on. The way Skeens has been built
Well,
through.
yes, yeah, but I'm just saying,
He didn't
you
build.
know.
They didn't build Skeens. He's
No,
he's
I'm saying
superhuman.
the build-up innings
Yeah,
wise.
I got you.
With him finishing
But
at
how
100, 160 and a
I
third.
have a deep question on that real quick.
Yeah,
Building up innings, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You ran with
Maya
that-
Cochran, yes.
Maya Cochran. Could you run with her right now? No, you had to train for it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. I mean, I'm
you're-
still running. I'm still running.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
She's also like
But
all
you built
SEC
your
right
innings
now.
up.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
built your innings up.
Yeah.
But year to year, it's always different.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying because he threw what 160?
Yeah,
Whatever.
he threw
He
160
could throw
and a
180
third.
next year. Says who? Where's the paper that says this works?
there's no-
exactly.
But I don't know.
It's like the 4-minute mile. We were talking about this off air.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run a 4-minute. It can never happen. Somebody did it barefooted.
Yeah.
And then what happened right after it? Multiple people did it. The bullpen's being used like it's never been used. Guys are getting hurt like they've never been hurt. The fact is, how did Garrett Cole pitch through his torn UCL and he's pitching the playoffs through 98, 99? No one's asking that question. He didn't go for an 8 to 16 month hiatus. He got back in. And we're not asking the right questions. How can we make sure this isn't happening and push these guys to a different place? One is a contract, because once you're under contract, they're willing to push you a little farther. We saw that with Mitch Keller. But the reality of it is, if you don't push them in the minor leagues, how can you ever push them in the big leagues? Because the anxiety, the stress, everything is such in higher demand, and you're asking for them to do something never done, and you're assuming something that you cannot assume.
Skeens is also an interesting case to me, though, because, I mean, if you think about it, this is he's going on his 3rd year now as being a full-time pitcher. He pitched once as a full-time pitcher in college, and then this was his first time being a full-time pitcher as a pro. So I'm okay with them easing him in just because this
So
is
he was
all-
throwing more prior to,
What's
because
that?
he was doing both.
Well, in a way, yes, but it's just totally different. This is so new to him, where most other professional baseball players, they have some sort of routine or gradual progression into this, where he went from being a two-way player to the number 1 pitcher in college baseball to maybe the number 1 pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to maybe just err on the side of caution just a little bit in year 1.
But what caution?
What caution is just these are uncharted waters.
Yeah, so what if he blows next year? Did they do something wrong?
I don't know.
So exactly.
I don't see wrongdoing.
I'm not saying
hear what
right,
you're
wrong, or
saying,
different. I
but
understand.
in the case of Skeens, I see no issue with.
But Skeens isn't a,
I would
Skeens
say,
is a different
I
animal.
agree with Noah. I think the Pirates did it.
Yeah,
I'm not
the
saying
way
they didn't do a good job.
I know you're
Yeah.
not. I'm just
I'm
saying,
saying-
I think that, however, having said that,
The
to me,
grand
you
scheme
take
of
the
things.
reins off next year.
Yes,
I don't give a darn.
He should be fine.
I don't want
to
to hear
your
20, 30,
horse.
40, and I'm probably going to start to hear it. And because every team does it, it's not just the Pirates. But if they are going to win next year, you cannot do this again. You
And
can't do the 5-day between
I thought
start
it was
deal.
necessary for this year, considering what they had. You had a guy in your rotation like Bailey Falter, who I think had only had 86 innings of Major League Baseball was his career high. He's in your starting rotation. You had Jared
I go to
Jones.
Oviedo the year before. He'd never been a starter in the major leagues.
Yeah, well, what happened to Oviedo at the end of the season?
Yeah, but why didn't they do the same thing with him?
Yeah, but I can
I'm
point.
saying maybe they learned from that.
Oh yeah, but come on, we can point to guys
Yeah,
that the
right,
same
right.
thing.
I'm
It
just
doesn't-
saying-
What I'm
again,
trying to say
You
is
look-
it
you-
is a giant.
You
I
look
don't
at their
know.
rotation for this year, I think it made sense to err on the side of rest. And that's why I asked the question was,
But
is
what is-
next year,
Define rest.
rest is giving them an extra day. It's cutting
But
down their
you
workload.
said Keller was worse.
But Keller suffered because he was the outlier in that group.
So it's okay
Everyone
to-
else was Luis Ortiz, Bailey Falter, Paul Skeens, Jared Jones. I mean, Martin Perez and Marco had been dealing. You guys were going through
But
injury. It was just. I think if this was a one-off thing where they recognize big picture, we're ushering in a whole bunch of new arms, and we're gonna have to do it this way for this year.
So it was
and that
a
was the
successful
point of,
season then.
no, it wasn't. But if next year they have it in a place where they can go with a standard five-man rotation, like Brownie pointed out, and allow Paul to pitch once every 5 days, you know you're getting the best pitcher in
But then
baseball
you're not protecting.
twice a week.
But say Chandler's coming up,
But
you're not protecting him.
But because they have the depth, it could still be once every 5 days, and it's just maybe it's not Chandler every 5 days or Jones every 5 days, but you can get Paul every 5 days, Mitch every 5 days, and the guys that are comfortable getting to that point, and then you can also build it up. It was just this year, there were so many guys who weren't at that rate that you had to sacrifice the one that was built up, Mitch, he had to play the kid way this year, and they had to kind of, for lack of a better word, baby him a little bit, just because they are babying everyone else. But now, for this upcoming year, I don't think you have to do that with everyone. You might have to do it a little bit with Chandler. You might have to do it a little bit with Jones, just because of his workload and everything with the injury. I don't know what their goal as far as usage is with him this year, but I think you're in a better spot where you can get more usage out of those guys. And because of the depth that you have with Burrows, with Ashcraft, with Chandler, with Oviedo coming back, there's so many
Listen,
other guys
everything
you
you
can
just
get a
said-
little bit better.
Everything you just said makes complete sense.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked. Yet.
Yeah, but they haven't been in this spot yet. Is
Yeah,
my
I'm talking about
counter-argument.
anywhere. It hasn't worked. Everybody's
Right.
got, and that's
Well,
what I'm
I mean,
saying.
you
Right,
look-
wrong, or different.
every-
They have
every-
a lot of reason, and they have a lot of information to say why.
Who's doing it
I'm
right, in
saying-
your opinion,
Who's doing it
with
right?
starting pitching? Because if you look at the teams in the World Series right now, the Dodgers don't have.
But they're,
Who's the only guy that they have they can rely on 6 innings is the
But
guy they acquired
they're-
at the deadline.
but they're in the World Series.
I agree. Is that because of their pitching? It's because of their bullpen.
It's because of their team.
It's because of their team, their
Well,
offense,
Milwaukee
and
was
everything.
because of their
but I'm just
bullpen.
saying the strength of this team is starting pitching.
Cleveland is because of their
So
bullpen.
who's doing starting pitching the best right now in baseball?
I think it's all a mess. Unless you become an actual signed free agent and you kind of write your own narrative, because that's when you really have control. I mean, you could say the Yankees are maybe the best at it right now.
Yankees have a good
But
rotation.
it's all about you sign him, and you're talking about Mitch Keller. He took the brunt of it. He literally just signed a deal, and you made him take the brunt of it. That's tough. Because
But, I mean,
you're saying, and I
here's my-
understand, I agree.
yeah.
I don't disagree with what they did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just bringing up a question because what if, and it hasn't worked, because next year we're going to say Ortiz hasn't touched this many innings. Oviedo is coming back from injury. Burrow's never touched this many innings. Chandler, Jones, Mitch Keller's coming on a bounce back. Like, it's still the same questions. It's just a new year because there's no number you're actually talking about hitting. You're not saying 200 innings.
I think if
you're
you
not
have-
talking about 30 starts. You're not talking about anything other than we need to protect them. What from what? 200 innings?
If you have
225?
two guys that you're comfortable getting you 200 plus innings in a year, then this can work.
You feel great about it.
Yeah,
but if
I
they're
think
not
they
going
have at
to
least
allow
two
it,
of those guys this year.
but that's why
Going
they signed
into 2025.
But that's why they signed Perez. That's why they signed.
They didn't expect Perez to throw 200
they got to
innings.
get somebody because that's what other teams do. You look at Chicago.
I think
they
that-
really had no injuries outside of Hendricks, who doesn't throw very hard. But those guys don't necessarily blow up the gun.
I
but
think
they
the
eat
reality
innings.
was that this year they entered the season hoping
I
that
understand.
this could be their 2015 Cubs type year, where they peaked a year early. I think that it was always clear to them that this upcoming
isn't-
season, where they wanted to get Paul acclimated, they wanted to get Jared acclimated, and their mentality was, if we can win by doing it this way, that's great. If it doesn't work, so be it. And that's why the manager's back, and
now be
that's
a
why the
fan.
general manager's back.
Now be a fan.
I get that.
And that's all I'm trying to say is because
Yeah.
I get this question a lot, and it's the understanding of like, I don't know, because there really is no answer, and there's no answer around the league, because there isn't a typical guy out there that's throwing 200 innings. Like, we're not going for that threshold anymore. We're not being what we used to be in baseball. And baseball is going to come back around. Starting pitchers are going to become more valuable because you can't keep rotating bullpen guys in and out, in and out, in and out, unless you're like Tampa Bay, willing to just throw these guys left, right, up, down, in the minus the big leagues.
Everyone's doing that now.
Not as much as Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, yeah, but I mean, you look at the Guardians.
But you have to do that if that's what you're going to do.
I don't know. I think that you look at this team next year. You've got two guys who could probably get to 200 innings easily. And I think Skeens can reach 200.
But is that the goal? That's all.
That should be. I mean, I think your goal is you look at it. We've got a 1 and 2 that we know can pitch on 4 days rest.
If we make the playoffs, they have to throw 200 innings.
Correct. And then after that,
so that's 40 plus innings.
You assume some combination of Jones, Oviedo, Falter, Chandler, all these other guys are going to be able to cover the rest of that. And, you know, how many years has any team had where their 1 through 5 are completely healthy, right? And that's where you plug and play, and that's where you can get Jones to 160, and that's where you can get Chandler to 140, and that's where you can get all of these guys, and that's why they built this depth. I just think that this year, a lot of people assumed that you would have that expectation that what you listed where, yeah, they would have been a better team this year if Paul would have pitched once every 5 days. But they wanted to get him acclimated, and they looked at this year as this is your freshman orientation year.
Yeah,
essentially.
it started
and that's
from the very
frustrating.
beginning.
That's very frustrating for fans. That's a tough pill to swallow. But if it progresses the way they want it to, and so far they've done a lot of things wrong, this regime. I don't think you can really criticize. They have not made a lot of missteps with how they've developed Paul, how they've progressed Paul. I don't know how much development there was. He's kind of just who he is. But if this continues on this track where you use 2024 as a year where we can just let everyone get acclimated, dip their toes in the water, and now you can take the chain off of them and say, go run. Now you're a better team. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think, ideally, you see more of that this upcoming season.
If you like this episode, check out the next one with Noah Hiles.
Yes.
This one coming up, the next one is even better, promise, on Hold My Cutter.